All right. So today, let's talk about how to like spice up our artwork. So we've got a drawing here of Wally. Wally is always super cute. Everyone loves him. But how can we make this artwork even more fancy? Because there's nothing wrong with it right now, but we want to spice it up. So first thing I want to talk about is glows. So here's the first thing you need to know about glows. So we're gonna make his little plant here radioactive. I don't know why it's radioactive, but it's gonna be radioactive. So I'm gonna grab a really bright green color, and I'm gonna grab an airbrush, and let's grab a big airbrush, and I'm gonna paint it like this. So that is a really good start, right? So we kind of have a little bit of a glowy effect, but it could be more powerful than that. Like that's not good enough. So what we're going to do is change this layer type from normal to add glow. And you can already kind of see how glowier it gets. And we can add a glow to like kind of like reflecting off different surfaces. Just really, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. We just grab a big airbrush. Maybe we want to make a little bit more of a refined, thinner brush here for certain parts. Okay, perfect. So looking at this, you can kind of see how you can really see the glow really well reflected off of Wally, but it's kind of hard to see the glow around the plant. And that's because the background is a light color. So anytime you try to add a glow to a light color, it's going to be really hard to see because glows work the best on dark colors. So let's go to our little background circle right here. If I just turn that off, you're going to see how much more powerful that glow just became just by getting rid of that light background. We can really strongly see the glow now. So my advice for you, probably one of the most important pieces of advice I'm going to give you right now, is to not go bonkers on your glows because do as I say, not as I do, because I tend to go super bonkers on my glows all the time, but you want to kind of try to rein it in. So we're going to turn the opacity down so that glow is not that intense. And what I recommend is creating multiple layers and kind of stacking your glows on top of each other to kind of get an effect you're happy with. So for instance, if I really want this plant to be a radioactive glowing plant, then yes, going bonkers like this intensely might be okay. But for the most part, you're not going to really want that in your artwork. So you can kind of stack your glows. I recommend doing like kind of the bottom layer as like a really large, kind of really soft glow, but the opacity is way, way down. And then as you kind of build up, the opacity gets a little bit brighter until you get an effect you're kind of happy with. So that's just where I'm going to leave it for that. Let's switch gears to creating a background. So I want a kind of spacey galaxy background for this. So I'm going to leave my circle as so. This is kind of like my flats for my circle. It's just a nice big old plain circle. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to clip to layer below, so no matter what I do is going to be constrained to that circle. So let's grab a dark blue, start there. And I'm just going to start off with some airbrushes. I'm just going to mess around with colors until I find something I like. I don't want the background to be too bright because I don't want it to overwhelm my Wally, but I want to add more to it than just a solid color. So I'm just going to kind of mess around here with some ideas. And let's see, let's mess around. I don't have anything in particular in mind. I'm just going to kind of experiment and see what I like. All right, that's not a bad start here. We kind of created our own little gradient here. I want to add this more spaciness to this. If you want to do stars, I really recommend there is a brush by default in Clip Studio. You've got some airbrushes. There's different types of airbrushes. We always use our soft airbrush for like a lot of stuff, but there's one called airbrush spray. It's hard to say. And I recommend doing that for stars just to start with. If you're used to doing stars like drawing little things, that's fine. It depends on the style you're going for, but if you kind of want a more natural looking stars, I recommend using the airbrush spray. It's very hard to say. So as you can see, if I just kind of use that, I can adjust the settings for how large I want my every dot to be, how dense they are. Let's make the density higher. So you can see that's a really quick, easy way to do a very simple, faraway star-looking background. I have a brush that I like. Let me grab a Add Glow here, and let me change the color a little bit. It's kind of a spacey brush background by design. So I'm going to grab that. I believe it's under this section from how I set up my files. Okay, so clip to layer below, so we stick to our circle, and let's experiment and see what we got here. So yeah, you can see this is a very strong, very spacey, kind of cloudy stars kind of background. So I'm just going to do a layer of this, turn the opacity way down, and then maybe do another one. Let's clip to layer below, Add Glow, maybe do one a little bit more, less intense. So that's kind of cool. And then maybe I want to mess around with overlays or things like that if I want more variety in like my colors. Let's just experiment. Like I said, I'm just kind of messing around as I'm talking to you. See if there's something I find that I like. Add a little bit of color variety here. And maybe I want to make it a little bit darker overall. Maybe I'll just fill in this whole layer and then maybe mess with some layer types and opacities, see if there's something I really like. All right, that's actually pretty good because that's going to help us see the glows really well. So one thing that kind of sticks out to me is that on this dark background, there's areas of Wally, especially like his treads here, that kind of blend in with the background. And I want Wally to stand out. So what I might recommend is you can either do this on a layer or a folder. In the layer property window, the very first icon here creates a kind of stroke, a border effect. And we can change the color of that, we can change the size of that. So I can make a really thin line. You can see it kind of adds this kind of border around Wally here to help make him stand out. So let's just leave it like that for right now. Perfect, great. Now he definitely stands out. If I were to turn it on and off, you can see how it's gonna, maybe, here we go. I'm like, how do I turn it off? You can see how now he kind of stands out a lot more from the background. Okay, awesome. Next up, let's add actually some glows to his eyes. So I already have a kind of eye shine I kind of already have added, but I want a kind of cloudy look, like he's looking into like a distant galaxy or something. So I'm gonna make a new layer. We're gonna use Add Glow again, and I'm gonna start with maybe just an airbrush, and let's just experiment and see. So here we go. Let's add a little bit of a blue glow, because his eyes are lenses, so they're kind of like shiny and glassy. So that's my first pass at that. Now I want to add the kind of cloudy galaxy effects. So I'm going to pick a different brush. It's kind of this brush, just to show you, if I were to color, it's a very textured yet kind of cloudy looking brush. So I'm going to make a new layer, Add Glow, and I'm just going to try to paint a little bit like so. And maybe I like that, but maybe it's not the color. Maybe for his eyes, I want him to be looking into like a pink purple galaxy instead of a blue galaxy. So instead of repainting what I've got here, I can change the color in my color wheel. I can go to Edit, and I can go to Convert Drawing Color. And you can see now how it's instantly changed to like a purple color. I can make that a little bit more pink, Edit, Convert to Drawing Color. Now I got kind of like a pinky purple looking cloudy effect. And I'm going to turn the opacity down just a little bit. And cool. Now I'm going to add one more layer of this cloudy. I just want to make sure around the eye shine, I just want like a little bit more. So I'm going to add glow, a little bit more intense glow just in this one area, just for funsies. And in fact, I'm going to select a different brush, kind of like a softer like brush, and I'm just going to go around and, oops, I'm going to undo that and try again. I kind of just want like almost like a reflection. Like I said, like I kind of want any kind of trick that's going to help me make this look a little glassy. So let's do, I'm not in love with it, but we're going to leave it. I'm going to grab a soft airbrush and use transparent colors and kind of fade out some of the edges here. And we can mess with our opacity, get to where we're happy with it. Lovely. All right, look, it's already spicier than it was before. If you want to add a little bit more kind of white shine, you can add a new layer. You can do glow, or even probably normal type is good if you're using white as your color. If you're using white as your color for a glow, the add glow really isn't going to do too much for you. It's going to be pretty much the same as if you do like a normal layer type. It's really not going to, maybe it's a little bit glowier, but you're going to kind of get the same. There we go. A little bit glowier. Adding that kind of softness to the shine. All right, I'll keep the opacity down just a slight bit so you can kind of see the difference. Cool, okay, it's coming along. Okay, what can we add next? Next, I think maybe we can add some textury grunge effects to Wally, because he's not a shiny, clean robot. He's kind of got some grit to him. So I'm going to go into my Wally area. I've already got my flats kind of selected here. In fact, before I add the grunge, I'm gonna backtrack on that for a second. I want Wally to kind of blend in better, to fit in his environment better. I'll put it that way. I want him to fit into this kind of blue, spacey environment. So here's a trick you can do. You're going to find your flats. So here's my kind of more detailed flats. So I'm going to use those. I'm going to duplicate that. And there's a little section over here on the side. If I kind of click this, it's this like kind of blue and white box in the layers window. You're going to see it's going to change everything to blue. So now it's like super blue. And we can change this color to anything we want, any other color we want. And you're going to see how it changes kind of the value. So, or changes the hue, I should say. The hue, it's keeping the value of the colors that are there. So kind of how light and dark it is, but we're changing what color it actually is. So actually blue worked out pretty good because we've got a blue background. So let's just pick a blue again. And we can mess with the opacity. We can kind of just turn it down for a softer look. I might recommend experimenting making it slightly darker, so like a multiply or linear burn. And that's like very dark, but it kind of depends what you're going for. So if you've got a character in the shadows, this might work as a good starting point for your shading. But I'm going to just turn it down a little bit. So this is kind of more slightly blue. So we can kind of see the difference between before and after. Although, don't forget, if you use this trick, like kind of halfway through like I am, that you remember to turn on the clip to layer below, or else all my effects you can kind of see kind of disappeared. So we're kind of going to click that so we get all of our shading and highlights that we had before. So before and after, just kind of adds a little bit more, definitely makes it fit into this spacey environment a little bit better. So, okay, that's our starting point. Now let's add some grunge. Okay, I'm going to make a brand new layer, and I'm going to change it to linear burn. I'm going to grab a color, any color. Let's just kind of grab a reddish, orangey, something like that. And I'm going to clip to layer below, so that way I'm kind of staying in my Wally area so I don't start painting in the space. Now, you're going to probably have your own textures that you like. I've downloaded many. I'm going to use for this one, there's one I have called Grungy, Soft Grungy Metal. So that's the one I'm going to use for Wally here. So I'm just going to paint that on, and you can see it right here, how it kind of shows up. I can paint on certain areas, add a little bit of grunge to it. And like almost everything that I've been doing, I'm going to turn down the opacity so it's not this intense. I kind of leave it on as I'm working so I can really get a clear view of where I'm placing this. But when I'm done, I'm going to turn the opacity down. And then I can kind of, I like to call it stacking. Kind of reminds me like a video game where it's like you can stack effects. Like I'm going to stack my textures because maybe some areas I want it to be darker and some areas I want it to be lighter. And I kind of build up. So for textures, you don't have to do just darker. You can also go lighter. So I'm going to add some light grunge effects. So I'm going to grab like a lighter yellow color, add a new layer, go to overlay. And for this one, I'm going to select just this one color, this kind of like the orangey box, the brighter color here for Wally. And now I'm going to kind of overlay paint some lighter grunge here. So you don't have to go just darker. Like if I just did the lighter one, you can see how even that adds a very subtle grungy effect to it. So mess around with it, see what you like. You can use your special wand. We've kind of talked about our special wand before, how we can select certain areas. Let's use our special wand to add some texture to this boot, actually. So, new layer, clipped layer below. You can see now by adding kind of textures and rendering that we're gonna have like a lot more layers to deal with. It kind of gets out of control. So a lot of times I'll make a folder like this with my overlays to keep it going too crazy, but for this example, I don't want to stop and like rename every layer. Okay, so let's add some texture to this boot. Let's see what kind of textures I have. I think I have some, I might have some fabric textures, maybe some, let's see what I have here. Let's just use a soft fabric, perfect. I'm gonna grab, let's try a color like this, and let's just experiment and see. All right, so we can see it's got a little bit of a, let's add this area. That's got a little bit of like cross hatching to it. And then I'm gonna mess around with layer types. Maybe try overlay. There we go. So now I've painted just in those areas, and now it kind of adds a little bit something extra to that zone. So one last thing we're gonna do, actually no, I lied. 2 more things we're gonna do. Okay, first, I wanna add a little bit of glow to the background here for this example. So I'm gonna grab like a brighter blue. I'm gonna get a good old-fashioned airbrush. And I'm just gonna kind of paint a little bit over here as if he's kind of got this halo effect going on. We're gonna lose our plant glow, but that's okay. That was kind of just an example anyway. So let's just add a little bit lighter color here. Let's make it a glow, and we're gonna kick the opacity down. Okay, so sometimes you might want to have your background like light affect your character. So what I did here is I added a little bit of glow behind the character, and now I want to add a little bit of glow in front of the character. So using the same color, using add glow, I'm going to go in and kind of paint some areas that are kind of maybe have light overlapping from the background to help the whole piece kind of meld together a little bit. It really works well in these little like bits and corners. And so let me turn the opacity down. And this is kind of a really nice subtle effect. It might work better with different types of characters. Like I like to use this a lot with characters who have like hair kind of blowing, and the color kind of just, it kind of fades off into the background a little bit. So I might want to stack a little bit. Maybe there's certain areas I want it to like fade into the background more. And let's turn the opacity down. Okay, so you can kind of see how we kind of stack and build up things to be just the way we like them. So if you decide, oh, that's too much, we can always delete a layer and forget that. So, all right, one last trick to spice up our artwork. So for this trick, I'm going to right click and I'm going to say merge visible to a new layer. So this is taking everything we've done so far and putting it on one layer so we can manipulate that and do whatever we want to that. So I'm going to duplicate that because we definitely want to be doing this. What we're going to do is blur. We're going to do a blur effect. And you definitely want all the elements you want blurred to be together on one layer to get the best looking effect. So we're going to go to filter, blur. We're going to go to Gaussian blur. We're going to kick that baby up really strong so we can see it really well. I'm going to be super blurry. It might take a minute to think. All right, so now I've got a really blurry WALL-E. So if I toggle back and forth, you can see the difference between before blur and after. So I obviously don't want WALL-E to look this blurry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my soft airbrush. I'm going to grab a big old size. I'm going to grab a transparency as my color. And I'm kind of going to paint, like eraser paint as an airbrush on the areas that I want to be clear. And I recommend starting with a large airbrush and kind of using the smaller, kind of going smaller as you kind of decide what you want. So we kind of get this cool kind of fade effect on the areas kind of on the edges. So if I were to turn off WALL-E and all these things, so this is the only layer visible is the blurry layer. So let me just turn on this, and you can see as I erase, kind of like right here, this is going to become more clear. So maybe I want his eyes to be a little clearer. You want those to be in focus, but some of the other bits are kind of more now out of focus, and it kind of adds this really cool effect to our artwork. So, and ta-da! We've spiced up WALL-E. So he was fine before, but now he's even spicier. So I hope this little tutorial helped you. Thanks for hanging out with me while I colored them in. And good luck on your own art adventures.